What's going on, everybody? Is yours truly, Conor, here from the Horny Goat channel. And on this installment of the Marvel Roundtable, we continue on to Phase 1 as we, tackle the very first sequel in the MCU, Iron Man 2. Does it have the curse of sequels not being as good as the first, or are there some redeemable qualities in Iron Man 2? Sort of. Let's break it down on this installment of the Marvel Roundtable, Iron Man 2. What's going on, everybody? It is Conor here on the Horny Goat channel, of course, the Horny Goat podcasting network, and welcome once again to the Marvel Roundtable. We break down every single movie and show in the entire MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You guys already know me. I've introduced myself twice at this point in time, and this time we're going to be conquering Iron Man 2, and of course, I am not alone. I've got the esteemed panel of the Horny Goat crew here with me this evening. First and foremost, I've got, once again, and I'm going to keep introducing him as this, the power couple. I love how JP just shrugs his shoulders on this one. He's like,
I just accepted it.
Just like this movie? Yeah, okay. We got JP and Heather. What's going on, guys?
Exactly. Not much, man. Not much. This movie damn near put me to fucking sleep.
Oh, we'll definitely get into it. We'll definitely get to it. And of course, everyone's favorite bear from upstairs, Canadian Basement. How are you, my friend?
What's up, bitches? I'm ready to discuss Iron Man 2, which was...
Yeah, that's a way of putting it for sure. Of course, we want to hear your guys' feedback as well and let us know what you guys thought of this movie. So make sure you let us know if you guys are joining us live here on the channel, youtube.com/hornygoat, or if you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform, we're of course on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So make sure you download us, and the latest episode of No Bucks Given, also available on your favorite podcasting sites. Don't make sure you also check back on the other older episodes of the Marvel Roundtable. We already covered Iron Man 1 and the Incredible Hulk, and this time we're going into Iron Man 2. Now, there's a couple things I want to break down before we'll get into the development going into this. But this movie was made in 2010, so technically speaking, even though it doesn't really have a major significance thus far, but this is the first MCU movie that is taking place, or released anyway, after the Disney acquisition of Marvel Studios. Now, this doesn't really play a major part in the MCU just yet, because at this point they were kind of very, transparent about they are gearing obviously towards the Avengers movie. If it wasn't obvious from the first two movies, it's definitely going to be a lot more obvious in this one. But real quick, without going into like a full in-depth review of it, because we're going to break a lot of stuff down going into it first and foremost, what did everyone think of Iron Man 2?
I almost died. Thank God for Facebook showing me Ink Master.
Well, there you go.
Episodes.
Go ahead, JP.
Actually, no, you go ahead. I'll it's fine.
He still needs to think.
Trust me.
It's definitely not my favorite Marvel movie. It's far from it.
Yeah.
There's somewhere hidden in this movie there could potentially be a good movie, but you'd have to remove a lot of things.
You would have to remove at least an hour of this movie.
Yeah, was it just me? It felt like it was on for like 5 hours.
It was nearly clocked in just shy of 2 hours if you're not including the credits and the end credits.
It felt like a long fucking movie.
So obviously that was a big hurdle of it.
It felt like it would, Star Wars movies go 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Give or take.
Yep.
This, I would rather watch an episode of Raw than watch this movie. I've seen it 3 times, and each time it gets worse and worse and worse. And again, I'm gonna say it, everybody should have died within the first half hour of this movie.
And you know what? I'm actually inclined to heavily agree with JP on that when we get to the more details about this movie.
No, my question, and I get it's a superhero movie, but give it some credibility somewhere. There is no fucking way that half of these fucking people, the human body cannot endure the shit that these guys, I don't care who the fuck you are.
I mean, the main thing I believe was Mickey Rourke, so.
You cannot endure. When we get to it,
Oh
he's
yeah, I
the
know what
guy.
you're talking about. I was
You
like, what
can't
the
endure
fuck?
this. You
No
can't endure
way.
the punishment that these guys receive, man. There's just no fucking way. The human body cannot do it.
Well, let's kind of crack a lock into it. So obviously we're coming off of this is, like I said, the first sequel in the MCU, which for better or for worse, it's interesting, kind of thinking about it generally speaking. Obviously, a lot of times any movie franchise, the sequel is never as good as the original. We'll get there. We'll get there for sure. But this one had a bit of an uphill battle even before that anyway. So obviously there was critical and commercial success of the original Iron Man movie back in May of 2008. So Marvel Studios announced pretty quickly that they were going to set work on a sequel. In July, they even narrowed down Thoreau who would be the head writer, and of course Jon Favreau, who is of course more recently and notably with his success with both The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, that they were going to come back and bring back, of course, Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, and of course Jackson were to reprise their roles from the original Iron Man movie. However, we have a couple of snafus, including the first of only two, as far as I can remember off the top of my head, recasts. We have a different Rhodey now. Rhodey ain't the same no more. He has been replaced by Terrence Howard, and instead we brought in Don Cheadle. And
What I think is worse.
really,
I don't buy Don Cheadle as anything.
not even Captain Planet.
Other than a fucking the straight black man off the corner, the typical businessman. That's the only kind of character I see Don Cheadle as, because of his personality and the way the quips he does with his lines.
He's supposed to be like what, a colonel or something in the
Lieutenant
military?
Colonel in the United States Air Force. And I will say this right now: I'm not gonna shit on the military aspect, because they pretty much had it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did pretty good with this one.
Oh, all right.
But they don't even
And
really
the
focus
Senate
on it very much.
The Senate hearing they did pretty well as well.
Well, the Senate hearing. Okay, when we get to
We're
that.
gonna get it. Yeah.
We'll get there. So of course,
Yeah, I just wanted to say before you move on.
Yeah.
I didn't really like Terrence Howard too much, but I still liked him, I think, better than Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle just does not. I can't buy him as fucking what he's supposed to be. He comes off like this bitch.
I think it's tough for me because as someone who has seen him in all the movies afterwards, it's kind of like a foregone conclusion that because you see somebody in this role for so long that it's hard to imagine anyone else, right? And I'm not disagreeing with any of your points. It's just that it's easier to fall in the sense of, oh yeah, that's Rhodey, because it'd be like if someone replaced Thor or some other, well, maybe Thor, like a major character, but like if you replaced a behind the scenes character or a more secondary character, it's very easy to kind of like, oh, well, of course it's them. You know what I mean? Because of it's ingrained in your brain after seeing them from, I'm trying to remember how many movies Don Cheadle has been in the MCU, at least, 3 or 4 with the Avengers. Yeah. So, kind of a tough call on that one. But I definitely see where we were coming in with that one. During the development, Jon Favreau said the film would explore Tony Stark's alcoholism, but it would not be the demon in a bottle version, which is a very famous comic where basically Tony drinks himself to death. While promoting the first film, Downey said that Stark would probably develop a drinking problem as he is unable to cope with his age, the effects of revealing that he is Iron Man, and Pepper apparently getting a boyfriend. Downey later, Robert Downey Jr. clarified later on that the film was not a strict adaptation of the Demon in the Bottle storyline from the comic book series, but instead about the interim space between the origin and the Demon story arc. So kind of what we were talking about before in terms of Marvel kind of taking the reins on certain things and doing their own versions of stories, for better or for worse, like I've talked about before with Civil War, and we'll eventually get to that, and some other little tidbits they did here and there. Hell, we even heard that apparently the initial idea was the early version of the film's story was supposed to involve Justin Hammer, who we'll talk about a little bit, creating different villains in addition to Whiplash like Ghost, but of course we won't see Ghost until much further down the road in MCU in the Ant-Man sequel. But other than that, they kind of were really quick to rush this in. Jon Favreau, for better or for worse, has created some great stuff. He's also created some not so great stuff. And so, do you hold it again? I'm going to throw this out to everybody before we get into the actual story in just a second. Do you hold it against him? I mean, no director's perfect, but do you think this movie? I have a sneaking suspicion we're all going to kind of agree, and I don't want to speak for anybody here, but I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to kind of agree on. I'll just say it right here. They cram a lot of shit into this movie, and I think it's one of those it's almost like the Spider-Man curse, right? They
I was
cram.
gonna say Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, it's so.
This is where it starts, honestly, for
Right.
the MCU in and of itself. I'm
Right.
not saying it starts with comic book movies now, because comic book movies end up in this curse one point or another. But Jon Favreau is definitely better with Star Wars than he is
I agree.
superhero.
I think I think if you honestly ask him and tell him, what did you think of this movie? He'd probably be honest with you and tell you, wasn't my greatest directing. I mean, he's a director, and didn't he produce this too, though?
He was just the director, as far as I can tell. So he wasn't as hands-on.
So here's the thing with Star Wars, Favreau has more of a pull because he's working with Dave Filoni.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Filoni and him are like
butter and jelly, baby.
Dave Filoni will tell him, here's the concept, and Favreau will direct it, or he'll produce. He's actually the executive producer. He's not even a director of all of these
okay
shows. So, but he directed a couple of the Mandalorians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dave Filoni. So the thing with Dave Filoni is he lays it out. Dave Filoni is George fucking Lucas. Okay. Kevin Feige is supposed to be the fucking Stan Lee. If I'm comparing, you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So Kevin Feige is actually Kathleen Kennedy in this movie, where we need to cram all of this shit in here because we need to tell Pepper Potts' story too, which is why I don't I mean, it's just so all over the place for me. It is.
Yeah.
Favreau. This is probably why Favreau got so much better at making movies, and Star Wars is the pinnacle of that. If you pay attention to what he's done with Star Wars, oh my god!
Right.
You can't argue with it.
Basement. What about you? I mean, do you think that? And I'll even ask this a little subpart to it too. Do you think it's also the difference between a movie versus a show?
Well, I'm gonna say like the movie isn't really poorly directed.
No,
It's the writing that kills this movie and the creative behind. Whoever's making the decisions, and it's not the director, of who they want to include, the way that they wrote the actual storyline. It's no matter who you got to direct it, it would have been a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to include way too much and tell too many stories. We've seen it time and time again in different superhero movies. If you can't, and it's weird because this one, like when I was watching it, it starts off with the villain of the movie, basically, right? And
Spoilers.
if they if they kind of just dipped into his story and his story versus Iron Man, it would have worked. But then they try to get in. It just they bring in Justin Hammer, and that like takes up a huge part. And then Pepper Potts being frustrated and also semi brain dead.
She's selling candles.
And
She's good.
Tony, who's the whole fucking I'm poison shit. Like there's just so much happening that I don't. You could have got Spielberg to direct this, and it would be a shit movie.
Well, so that being said, let's jump right into it. So there's a lot to unpack here, so bear with us. And of course, like I said, love to hear your thoughts. You can hit us up on social media or in the chat. We did post a little bit of a poll if people want to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on Iron Man 2. And we'll probably do this for all the future MCU movies as we continue and moving on up. We did get a comment earlier. Let me just see here if I can pull it up here. It said that Iron Man 2 they thought it was pretty good, but of course that's subject to everyone's opinion. Everyone has opinion. That's all. It's all good. Moral Fat 40 Ounce, love that name, says Iron Man 2 is awesome, but let's dive into the actual story itself. So again,
Can I say something real quick, Connor? Can I just say something real quick? So keep in mind, we're giving our opinions. This is a fact because you have to say it because you'll get them fucking people in there. You guys
is
don't
fact.
know what the fuck you're talking about. I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
And it's poorly done. It's poorly written. It's poorly. I can't say it's poorly
Spoilers,
produced.
JP.
I can't say it's poorly produced, and I don't think it's
The pacing sucks ass.
The pacing does suck.
Oh yeah,
The writing is bad, and the pacing is poor.
So we pick off with the beginning of Iron Man 2, it literally starts off right at the same time as the ending of Iron Man 1, where we see Ivan Vanko, whose father, Anton Vanko, is literally on his deathbed, and they're watching the press conference at the end of the first Iron Man movie, where Tony ultimately reveals, after some back and forth with the press conference, that he is Iron Man. One thing I just wanted to kind of point it out, and I'm not going to go too crazy because, again, Marvel movies have Easter eggs more than Jesus Christ, is that one thing, if you listen to the press conference that he initially says, is that it was a bodyguard. It was a metal, unknown bodyguard. And the only reason I kind of smirked at that is because in most of the Iron Man versions of the comics, Iron Man is Tony's bodyguard, and he never reveals himself to be Iron Man. So I just thought that was a nice little nod and a wink to like the original or some of the more, comic focused or more comic inspired, source there. So just thought it was a little nod and wink. I didn't catch that in the first movie. I don't know if they added it in the second one, but either way, I just thought it was a nice little nod and wink there. So Anton Vanko is dead. And just as he dies, we start to see that Ivan Vanko, his son, starts to work on his own version of the arc reactor, having blueprints that shows Anton Vanko's name on it, and he's basically, in the entire opening credits, able to, from what we presume, either the same thing or a similar version of Tony's arc reactor. Meanwhile, it cuts and jumps to 6 months later after the opening credits, and we see that Tony is flying down in the Iron Man suit, not being able to be smart enough to apparently avoid getting hit by fucking fireworks. That's another story for another time. He should be dead. That's gonna be JP's t-shirt. They should have been dead. Flies down and introduces the Stark Expo, which is basically something that allows all the biggest and brightest minds of the world to come together and showcase their technological advances. It is at this point that we reveal that Tony is getting poisoned. His blood, or I guess it's his blood, that's we presume based off of
weird fucking rate that makes no sense.
Right. Oh, we'll get there.
He does explain it.
No, but like the way that it like ramps up and slows down depending on what's
timing,
happening in the story.
Pacing's a bitch in this movie. So he is continuing the legacy of his father, Howard Stark, and reinstitutes the Stark Expo in New York City, in Flushing Meadows, Corona Park. And he finds out that the palladium core, which is in the arc reactor that keeps him alive, is slowly poisoning him, and he's having trouble finding a substitute. Now, before we get any further with this, so you have two interesting premises right off the bat, right? And we haven't even talked about Justin Hammer yet. We're going to get to him. We have two interesting premises. First and foremost, out of all the characters and the actors in this movie, and I know everybody loves Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, I actually really liked Mickey Rourke in this one. I'm not going to lie. I actually thought he played the role of Ivan Vanko pretty well, all things considered.
He's the guy. The guy has range as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this works within, in The Wrestler, he was great, and this kind of reminded me of that role as well, where he's the gruff, older but still physically able kind of guy.
I think with him, this character. So my only issue is, and they don't explain it until later.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of figure out when he says that should have been you, that he worked with Tony Stark at one time.
Right.
So I'm thinking, and I don't know, now I might be fucking ruining it here.
Spoilers.
But I'm going to go ahead and say Tony Stark, he created the whatever, and Tony Stark made it happen because he's rich and has a lot of money.
I think it's Howard Stark and Anton, and Thingy's father that worked together.
Yeah.
Until Howard Stark found out he was only in it for the money or something like that. That's the story, at least, that they say.
So in the
The father of the Panko guy was
Yeah.
in it for the money, nothing else.
correct.
Well,
so
that's the story that they say. But
right
I
in
don't
the
know.
movie. So in the movie, we later get exposition, so we might as well cut it over now. It's revealed that Howard Stark and Anton Vanko basically created the developments of the blueprints of the early stages of what would eventually be the arc reactor. Anton was in it for the money, and then when Howard Stark found out, he had him deported, and he basically stayed all the way in Russia. So it's like Anton and Ivan subsequently both have the intellectual capabilities, and you're right, they may not have the resources, but as you saw, Ivan Vanko was able to make the same damn thing pretty much as Tony did, with obviously some modifications. But either way, regardless, I think next to Robert Downey Jr., Mickey Rourke, I fucking loved in this movie. I don't know about you, Heather. Did you enjoy seeing good old crusty tattoo Mickey Rourke in all his sweaty glory with his
He
bird?
was really sweaty in this movie. Like sweaty and dirty.
What was that? Sorry.
I couldn't get past the duck lips. Him pounding on the fucking iron in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, well, I think that's the sheer amount of surgeries his face has taken.
I need to taste the metal on my mouth.
Again,
He got his face destroyed in
Tony
boxing.
Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. played his character. There was still character development with him, but they tried doing too much with his character development than they needed to, I should say. Not that they did, that they needed to. I honestly, I didn't mind. Mickey Rourke is great. I think he's a really good actor.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, he kills in this
Oh,
movie.
wow.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Okay, what?
shit.
He kills in this movie? I mean, he does. Literally.
No, he does good in this. He does a good job in this movie. What I wish they did too, because they only, if I had the ability to say what they could or should not have included and replaced with certain things in this movie, the whole Justin Hammer thing I don't think needed to be in this movie. I would have removed that entirely, and with Ivan, I would have given, like, they say, oh, 15 years ago he was sent to prison, which makes sense for why he has all the tattoos and why he's like this big muscular dude who's also a theoretical physicist. But it would have been nice to see like
More of his
some of
backstory.
his backstory, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you start the movie with him, which led me to believe this is going to be a movie a bit more about the villain. And I wish they cast like Howard Stark in a more ambiguous light.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, again, when we try to analyze these movies on their own without having without taking into consideration what we know is going to happen in the MCU. But you're right, because I actually trying to remember the gentleman who plays Howard Stark. I'm trying to find.
I don't know that guy's name,
but he I mean, crushes it. We'll get to that because there's a scene with him that is my favorite in this movie. But anyway. Yes, yeah. I mean, come on. He looks the part, But we get a very interesting scene, one of the most popular scenes in the entire movie. So Tony is leaving the Stark Expo, and he is being sworn in by the Senate to address him having the Iron Man weapon, as he's called it. This was a lot of fun because obviously we got to see more of a flush of Tony's character. Not that we didn't get enough of it from the first movie. But basically, the United States government is asking him to surrender over the Iron Man suit because they deem it as a weapon. We see all sorts of antics from, of course, they even bring in Rhodey to swear in and to testify, basically. Which, by the way, did you guys catch what Rhodey said when he's introduced into the Senate? It was, someone said they chose that line very perfectly because it was also kind of like a nod and a wink to Don Cheadle replacing him. He's like, listen, I'm here now. It is what it is. I'm here. Let's just move on and get it over with. Like,
I didn't catch that, but yeah.
Double meaning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I'm like, huh. He's like, and then if you hear Tony, he's like, I wasn't expecting you. He's like, look, it's me. I'm here. Let's just get this over with. I'm like, huh. Double meaning.
Did you go tanning or something?
Yeah. Did you get shorter? We see, of course, we're introduced to Justin Hammer, who is in charge of Hammer Industries, which is basically, I get where Baseman and you guys might be coming from. I'm not being a fan on Justin Hammer, but man, he's very punchable in this movie, you know?
I think Sam Rockwell does a good job.
Oh
Sam
my
Rockwell
God, yeah.
does a good job. He
Yeah,
plays great. So, yes, why he wasn't the guy, I don't know in this movie. I mean, I get why
Yeah.
they did what they did, but
Don't
So-
like his. It's include either him or include Ivan. Don't include them both.
Well,
Right.
yeah, we'll get to them. So obviously we see Justin Hammer is basically trying to one up Tony. He's trying to kiss ass where he can, and the idea is that the concern is that the technology to make the Iron Man suit could be mass produced, and Tony of course showcases that. Well, no. There's no way. There's no country that's anywhere remotely near it. But don't worry, you got me. And it's a cute scene. You see some back and forth, some gestures and whatnot. I thought it was a very fun scene, especially if you're a big fan of the Tony Stark character. I mean, throw this out to you guys. Overall, the Senate scene in general, did you guys like it? Did you guys think it was like a cutesy one? Heather, I'll have you go off first.
Well, as far as how Senate hearings actually go when it's a big issue, like a private citizen having a weapon of mass destruction, it went pretty close to what I would expect it to look like with a Senate hearing anyway.
Mm.
But he would not have been allowed to make as many quips and jokes with the audience behind him in an actual Senate
Right.
hearing setting.
I was just gonna say that. It just, they had to, again, with his character, the way he
ego
is, the
feeding.
ego, I don't, not, what's the word I'm looking for, where he,
Condescending.
not really condescending, but he's very, I can't think of the word. His
Horny.
ego, say it again?
He's egotistical
I
and
said-
flamboyant.
Egotistical, but there's a word I'm thinking of where it's not confident, but it's confident, but he has that
Arrogant.
Arrogance?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we already know what he is. They didn't need to do that in the scene because in a Senate hearing, they would probably hold him in contempt.
Yes.
Now, if they can do that, I don't even know if they can. Now, I
I
have
don't think he'd be leaving there with access to that kind of weaponry.
Right.
So the reason I say that, Kavanaugh hearing, they let him say his piece.
Mhm.
They let them, they do and then they ask questions and then they give their little spiel at the end. So I'm going to kind of disagree with Heather on this. It was more focused, and I know why they're doing this with the senator, because I think he is part of Hydra, if I remember correctly. So I understand, but it's like he was the only one. They made it look like he was the only one allowed to ask questions.
Right.
And he's not the committee chairperson.
Mm-mm.
No.
He doesn't tell the person to stop talking. The committee chairperson tells the person to stop talking. I get it. It's a superhero movie and they're trying to build a character with whatever. Got it. But
Yeah.
he doesn't need it. We already know he's an arrogant prick. We already know he's fucking has an ego. He's a narcissist. We'll
Right.
get into that.
Oh yeah.
I feel if they had done a bit more with Justin Hammer in this scene and just left it at that with him and then brought it back to Ivan and just had him for the rest of the movie, it would have been great.
I'm right there with you. I think the thing that they were trying to establish in this one isn't, at least for me anyway, yes, you're going to get Tony on the spotlight, but I think the bigger picture, or at least what I think they were trying to showcase, and I'll have Basement chime in on his thoughts, is that they were trying to establish, hey, some like the government's not really on your side here. There are people in higher up positions and kiss asses like Justin Hammer, who's a little fucking weasel, who are trying to take the Iron Man suit away from Tony Stark, and so they're trying to have a power pull here with him. I don't want to say fighting the government, but which is ironic considering we're going to get a little later on. But I think that's what they were trying to more establish, because obviously we don't know about the senator until much further down the road. But it was nice to create like, oh, there's somebody in fucking Washington who hates Tony Stark's guts. It's the kids these days and shaking fist up in the air and the man trying to come down on Tony. You know, it creates a person who's like wanting to see Tony fail and fuck up so they can come in and just take everything away from him. That's at least what I got out of it. But what about you, Basement, and your thoughts on that?
So first, shout out to Frank and Cody in the chat for chiming in. I'm aligned with you guys to a point. I mean, I like this scene. I think for obvious reasons they have to they have to not necessarily follow exactly how the Senate would work or whatever, but just to get their point across and reinforce the character that is Tony Stark. Because you got to keep in mind, some people might be watching this movie that never saw the first one, so they kind of want to reinforce again. This is the character that you're dealing with. This is the heroine of the story.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the Justin Hammer thing, and the senator or the main guy that's talking all the time, I would have loved to see like them kind of lay the groundwork a bit more obviously that there might be something sinister there. Because it is they do it later, yeah, but I think it might have helped the scene a bit more, even if it was just something very subtle, but enough for like the audience to pick up on, and then you could put both of those characters in the background of the movie and let the Ivan Iron Man play out, and then do Iron Man 3 with them instead of the god awful abortion that they create.
Oh well, we'll get to that in a few weeks. But no, I see your point there. Yeah. But definitely one of the more popular scenes, definitely in the movie. But it's not over yet. Of course, Tony is still kind of a little fluxed and flustered with the whole concept of, you know, being basically poisoned. And in doing so, makes a couple of bold decisions and some things going on here. The first being that he appoints Pepper Potts, his former personal assistant, as the CEO of Stark Industries. I feel like Basement wanted to talk a lot about this because I saw him make a comment about it. Was there you didn't like this move, or you love this part? Was that the deal?
I don't know, man. Pepper Potts is like, there's no indication there that she could even attempt to run a company.
And she's fine.
Yeah,
She runs Goop, so she's fine.
she sells
Goop,
fucking
whatever the
vagina
fuck
candles.
Right, exactly, perfect.
But she like, for some reason her character felt fucking dumb as shit in this movie compared to the last one.
Yeah, well, she's put into a major position. But not only do we get Pepper Potts as the CEO, but we have Stark hire another employee as a personal assistant. This is one Natalie Rushman, played by Scarlett Johansson, who, fuck it, we'll just say it now. Of course, spoiler alert, we find out later on in the movie, is going to be revealed as Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow. And I know I can see Heather just waiting in the wings for this. Do you want to wait until a little later on in the description, or do you want to get this off your chest now?
No, you can finish the description of this scene.
Okay. Essentially, we see her hired in as personal assistant for Tony now, including some intriguing photographs, but also some intense fighting prowess as she beats the shit out of Happy, which, hey, listen, I'm all in favor of that. And then, of course, it's going to be coming to a culmination of all this craziness in terms of, everything he's doing by going to the Monaco Historic Grand Prix. And, well, we'll get to that part in just a second because I want to go back and make sure that Heather gets a chance to speak on this character. But
go for it, Heather.
Yeah, the stage is yours. And to be fair, your overall complaint, I guess you should say, is about the way that she is portrayed in this movie overall.
Correct.
Floor's yours.
Correct. It's not even just how she's portrayed, it's how she thought she was portrayed. And yes, she has come out and said that my quote was taken out of context. But her little hissy fit of superheroes, especially female superheroes, being over sexualized, honey, you still
femme fatale.
signed the contract.
Come on.
You signed the contract. Deal with it. As a smart person would, by sitting there and going, this is something that has been going on for years, and at least my superhero outfit does not require me to be in a bathing suit, essentially. But going back just a little bit here to the part where Gwyneth Paltrow is trying to tell Tony that yes, your art collection is our art collection. No, honey, you are the personal assistant. He gave you the money to buy them. No, they are Tony's.
Here for 10
He
years.
does what he fucking pleases.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but they are his, not hers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what
But
she's saying.
And I can understand why she worked on that stuff for 10 years, curating it. So, I mean, it would have been nice for him. Again, it goes back to his character. He's an arrogant
It's
prick.
He's self-centered, but to a point, right?
Yes, but
Right.
For material things, at least.
so I want to go back just for a minute, and then are you done? Are you done? Go ahead, then. Finish what you're gonna. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That entire scene of the two of them going back and forth, it was like the director and the writers decided to drop acid and write a script. There was so much in just that little bit there.
You're talking about
That's
Tony
just-
and
What the fuck conversation are they having?
yeah, it's a lot. I
A
mean,
mile a minute, man.
we talked about before how there's a lot of scenes in the original Iron Man that were ad-libbed, and most of them, if not all of them, that at least appeared to be ad-libbed, flowed very well. But I'll tell you right now, this looks like it was like, okay, we're not gonna nope, we're not doing that anymore. We'll leave it this one, but like after that, we're not gonna fucking do that one anymore. So.
That entire section right there. I mean, him walking around, picking up the Iron Man painting, and then deciding to climb up on the counter like there's steps to hang the painting, while also telling her she needs to be wearing a mask because she sounds like she has a cold.
It was a really fucking weird. It just didn't feel like anybody had any plans for that scene, and it went
I
on.
think it dragged on too long, and I think that was the part that you know what I mean? If it was cut in half, maybe, but
he did not need to do a tour through his entire fucking lab just to end it with him saying, "You're now CEO."
Well,
and for her to be so dumbfounded that she doesn't speak at all.
I can understand why he did what he did, because he was trying to explain himself, and then she kept on going. She kept on going. He's like, "I'm gonna make you CEO." Whatever. Are you done?
Pretty much, yeah.
If you're not,
This is why her character pissed me off in this movie.
I hear you.
It was like nonsense.
I get you.
It's just he's going off on different conversation while she's trying to sit there and guide him into the conversation about the art collection he donated.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, take the hint and move on to the other conversation so we can get to the end of the scene.
So right, and I think the problem with that is that I think it goes in line with they're trying to showcase that Tony is trying to like, oh, everything's fine. I'm focusing on it. I'm not focusing on that. I get what they were trying to go for.
It just didn't come across like his erratic decision making because he's facing death.
Right.
And he doesn't know how to fix himself. But it was very poorly handled. To Heather's point about Scarlett Johansson, I mean, this is the character. That's the character. She's Femme Fatale. She's supposed to be in there, able to seduce someone, kick some ass, do whatever she needs to do to get the job done. That is her character. So does it make sense for her character to not use sex as a selling point?
And I think in later movies she actually says she says that's what she has to do, you know, by any means necessary.
So can I?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead, JB. Yep.
Oh, it's okay. So Cody put the Justin Hammer character wanted Iron Man out of the picture so that they could use his weapons instead of Tony's. Keep in mind, in the previous movie, he said he wasn't making weapons anymore, so you can't say that.
What? Yeah. That kind of goes a little against it because the thing was Justin Hammer in fact they mentioned this. that he was the defense weapons contractor for the U.S. Senate for a while, and then once the display happened, he lost the contract out. And yes, he wants Tony Stark out of the way because he wants to be like the big hotshot tech guy. Hell, if he didn't want, like, oh yeah, I don't want Tony's weapons out of the way, I mean, Tony wasn't using his weapons. He wasn't giving his weapons. That was the whole point of the Senate hearing. You can't have it.
But his tech is shit.
Well, that's
They go out of their way
part
to
of it
show
too.
how
Yeah.
bad he is at what he does.
But I just wanted to hit up on that. And the Senate hearing, again, they would not let Tony Stark bring anything. And again,
I don't think they'd let him walk out of there if he had a weapon of mass destruction at home.
okay, so that's the thing. Yes, it's a weapon of mass destruction, but he's using it as his, I'm a
Prosthesis.
superhero. I'm not using it for bad. I'm using it for good.
Right.
Yeah. But still, like, you have access to it.
Right.
God knows.
The introduction of Scarlett Johansson's character, I liked it.
I did too.
I think she is a really good actress. She can pull off being sexy even when she's not trying to be sexy.
That's because she's just sexy.
Yeah. So I mean, she does not. Yeah, Pepper Potts doesn't care for her because she kind of given her that
Jealousy vibe. Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, her character, I thought it was a good introduction for her. You really don't. Well, you know who she is.
Who speaks Latin anymore?
But the whole thing is they kind of hinted that she was something because she kicked the fuck.
Right, and that's the a little foreshadowing, which I always.
And this is the one thing I will say because I don't like. We'll touch on it later when she does fight a bit more. There's the difference between other superhero movies and women fighting men and the style of fighting that they employ with her, because a lot of it is not. It's not power based. It's movement based or using their using someone's strength against them, which like is it's way more believable than seeing a 100-pound chick fight off 250-pound men.
Rey Mysterio Hurricane running the giant.
Oh, yep. I 100%. You talk about believable, JP. I mean, I 100%. So we get to, of course, the wonderful Grand Prix. I have my notes here where they go. Here we go. The Monaco Historic Grand Prix.
This is where the movie just goes fucking brain dead.
Oh my God. So there's a lot to unpack here. So which is going to be the theme of this episode. So he's obviously there with Justin Hammer, who of course is doing his own thing. Tony, in the midst of finding out that his blood is continually getting poisoned, and again, like Basement said earlier, the time ratio is just insane, which is funny because I think Jarvis says, "Oh, continued use of the Iron Man suit is expediting the process," which makes sense. Well, wait.
It doesn't make sense with the way that they show it.
Well, I was about to say he says that before this scene. We only see him use the suit once before, so like you would think he would have said that. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm like you didn't put.
But, I mean, his blood toxicity is going up, regardless of the suit use or not. It actually seems to slow down when he uses the suit, which is fucked up.
Anyway, plot hole aside, he then, of course, in the moment of presumably making bad decisions and saying fuck it and fuck everything, decides that instead of just sponsoring one of the race cars, that he will drive it himself. How the fuck anyone let him do that is beyond me. And I just love how he waltzes on and the driver just gets so rip shit on the news he just throws down the hell. I just thought that was fucking hilarious personally. But of course, this is the moment in time where Vanko strikes. So we do see that he is able to somehow miraculously get a passport, because apparently you could just get passports in the cold of Russia just handed to you in an alleyway, whatever, I don't judge. Makes his way to America and sneaks in as part of the pit crew. At this moment, Tony's coming around, and lo and behold, Vanko, who why would he walk in the middle of the racetrack? Like, I mean, like Anyway,
Imagine how early you'd have to whip down in
Well,
order to catch the fucking vehicles.
story of my life. How early I have to whip down. So, here's a couple things I just want to note, and I'm going to barrel through this fight scene as fast as I can. He, of course, reveals that he has a modified exoskeleton, because that's what it really is, which comprises of the arc reactor he made and, of course, electric whips that he's able to literally cut the cars in half. He hits a couple of them.
So
of course,
terrifying.
he hits Tony's. Tony goes flying.
Yeah, he's dead for sure.
Did anyone else catch or remember the part where like he's walking and two cars just stop to try and not hit him because, you know, he's middle of fucking walking the road and they explode behind him to try and make him look badass? And I was
And his hair goes up in the back.
I was in pain. I was laughing so hard at that scene. But anyway, he of course attacks. Pepper and Happy realize what's going on. They try to get down there with the Iron Man suitcase. They actually, and here comes the best part, Vanko is about to kill him, or at least presumably about to kill him, and Happy, to his credit, because I would have done the same damn thing, hits him with the fucking car. He hits him not just one.
Yeah. Keep in mind, he's wearing
nothing to protect his lower half of his body. Rams the car several.
Him at all.
Rams him against the side of the raceway several times. Tony, of course, gets a hold of the suitcase. I'll be honest, that transformation's pretty fun. I enjoy seeing the suit coming out from the suitcase personally. That's just me. The fight ensues. Tony wisely uses the electric whips and kind of wraps it around himself to pull Vanko into him, flips him over, and just, of course, removes the arc reactor, depowering him instantly. I want to like this fight scene, I really do, but at the same time, I don't. I don't like this fight scene for so many even taking the logic out of it, to be completely honest with you, it's just like dull. And I get it's not the end fight scene, it's not the end boss, as we find out later on, but like, yeah, just yeah.
I hate when a character does everything in their power not to kill the people he's there to kill. Like,
Yeah.
he
Yep.
literally cuts the car up in a way that it doesn't hit the two people in the car. Like, he slices off all the sides in the middle and everything. I was like, oh my god.
Yep.
Like, I know you don't want to have him killing people, but then he just killed all these race car drivers. And not only them, he goes on to kill a lot of people in this fucking
He
movie.
Yeah. Frank, real quick in the chat, and a couple of people who will chat before I get to you guys, I want to make sure I get everybody's thoughts in here. Tim said more to the point that Justin Hammer wanted to get on the Iron Man suit and reverse engineer it. And of course, Frank from Harsh Truth says it wasn't just about the weapons, it was all tech. Very good point. He also says that the guy that gave Vanko the documents was a member of the 10 Rings. Interesting. Maybe a little Easter egg I didn't catch. And what's going on, Ryan Romano as well. But anyway, JP Heather, your thoughts on
which documents? The documents on how to-
the passport and the race car, the ticket to get to the racing event.
Honestly, I feel like there's times in this movie where I just blacked out mentally.
I mean,
Because I don't even remember any of that.
we said this
or anything.
we said this before on a previous episodes, that the one of the things that Marvel does pretty well is that they leave little things open-ended and they plant little seeds here and there that they can go back, and we will see that they go back and reference or make stories out of. So I give them credit for that. I didn't catch on anything as far as them wearing 10 ring stuff, which that's kind of, again, cool Easter egg. There's so many goddamn Easter eggs. It's like fucking the Easter bunny shitting all over the floor. But anyway, JP, Heather, your thoughts on the race car scene and the attack by Whiplash.
Right. So, where's the scene where they swerve? That's in that fight scene. Is that Vanko or Iron Man?
What, when the car swerved
you're talking about like
denied
when Happy hits him?
Standing in the middle of.
It
So
was Vanko.
Vanko Whiplash is in the middle of the road.
Yeah. Because there is no fucking way a car could swerve like that. The
Also
CGI
going as
on
fast
that
as they're
shit,
going to just stop
CGI
on a dime.
on that shit was so bad. What was Happy wearing a seatbelt, and was Pepper Potts wearing a seatbelt?
Does it matter? They ran over fucking
know
a
it
giant
kinda
Russian
does, because
into a
Pepper
wall.
Potts should have ended up in the fucking front seat when he rammed into fucking Vanko the first time.
I'm
Happy
almost
Out the windshield. I mean, come on, man. Plausibility, credibility.
None of this is plausible, first of all.
I know it's not.
I'm almost certain Pepper Potts was. I don't remember if Happy was, because I remember she couldn't get out of the car.
I
when
remember
everything-
that she had a big problem throwing a suitcase out the window, or out of a fucking
It was the
half
side
a
of a
door.
car. Yeah, I was gonna say yeah.
Come on, man.
So
That
everyone's
took
dead.
forever.
Heather, what'd you
I-
think? I mean, oh, sorry, go JP. Sorry, there you are.
I just
Dead.
should
Everyone
have
should be
saved
dead.
the scene for the end of the fucking movie.
Oh, we'll get
This
to that.
is the climax of the fucking movie. I understand why they did what they did, but come on, man.
How did his clothes not burn him when it burned off him?
It did. The clothes burned off of him
Yeah, why didn't it burn him?
because science.
Because it's a superhero movie. I keep fucking hearing that.
Science.
Um,
When you
Science.
can't explain it.
Yeah.
It's superhero.
yeah, I did not care for this scene in the movie at all. I hated it. Everybody should have died.
I mean, Heather. I mean, what do you think? I mean, you must have loved this scene, right?
It's probably the worst fight scene aside from Green Goblin's son fighting Sandman. But I think so much of this. Hey, enough.
Go in the bedroom and do that.
Take it with you. Go.
I think
So
I'm
much of
JP.
this scene alone. It's just like they fought, but they didn't fight. It was truly the senior citizens ballroom dance with this fight because you got Mickey Rourke, who at this time is in his
It's his
50s.
plan. To this day, I don't understand his plan.
Exactly. I mean, it's just
So, according to him, the plan is that he was not saying it was a good plan. I'm just saying this is what he said his plan was that he wanted to showcase that Iron Man is not as invincible as he thinks he is, or he
He
says
didn't know
that he
Iron
is.
Man was going to be in the race, right?
No, he did.
no. He didn't know he was going to be in the race. He just knew he was going to be at the track.
But they made a public spectacle of it once he did. They put it up on all the TV screens and everything. He was part of the pit crew. So it's like he was trying to get as close access to him as much as humanly possible, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody else caught this. He had a ticket for the event, like a seat ticket, and then he became part of the pit crew. Anyway.
This movie, the
There are
more I look into it, the less it makes sense.
There are so many loops, plot holes, and just overall nonsensical bullshit going on with this movie that you can't even just put it down to it's a superhero movie. You got to put that stuff aside. No.
He should have been hit by a race car as soon as you walked on that track. But
Or at
the
least
worst
3
part
of them.
is Happy and fucking Pepper Potts drive the opposite way for like 10 minutes. On the
Okay,
fucking race
even
car
if
track.
even if I'm to take the suspension of disbelief that Vanko was not hit in the middle of the road because, and I'm stretching here, so bear with me, because it's a long piece of a solid like straight piece of road. There's no fucking way they didn't fucking hit Happy and Pepper because they're fucking bobbing and weaving the opposite direction. Fuck, you go back and look, they're like hugging some corners at some point. It's like,
How many people did they kill by
should be-
driving the wrong way on a
it
race
should be a
track? They killed,
presumable
like,
death pool.
They
But
killed
They
everyone
killed like
on the
15
track.
people to save Tony Stark.
So anyway, I don't want to take too much time in here, but of course, Ivan accomplishes at least what he says he was supposed to accomplish, which is to showcase that Iron Man is not invincible and that other people have the ability to create the technology, which of course start to send the beautiful senator up in arms and saying, hey, he said this technology was going to be built for 20 years, and here it is literally right in front of somebody else, and somebody can produce it. And we get a little bit more of Ivan's backstory. It's explained exactly as we explained it earlier on in the review. And then at this point, he kind of reveals his intention to kind of like make sure that him and his entire family fall by whatever means necessary, which of course brings in Justin Hammer again, who says, hey, listen, I've got the resources and the tech that you can use, and I want you to help me take down Tony Stark or showcase him or use his weaponry, whatever the case may be. Anyway, Justin Hammer, bad.
Justin Hammer's exact words, as I remember them, is, I want Tony Stark's Iron Man to look like something that you would not even want to buy at a garage sale.
There you go. Exactly. He wants to make the best weaponry possible. Rhodey figures out what's going on with his blood poisoning. And we finally get into, we see a little bit more of what Justin Hammer's working on, which is, of course, piloting his own version of Iron Man suits for different members of the military, between the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and I believe the Marines were the four of them. Which of course we see Ivan Vanko. I kind of chuckled at this. He's like, this software shit, and he just instantly hacks into shit, which I love whenever Vanko upstaged Justin Hammer. I just thought that was really fucking funny stuff. But of course, it's party time, baby. The poison starts to get so bad that Tony just says, fuck it, I'm going to get drunk, and I'm going to start just partying my ass off. Of course, Rhodey just stuck his neck out and trying to get Iron Man to be back on the same page with everything, and winds up seeing Iron Man drunk in his own suit. Rhodey then, of course, commandeers the Mach 2, which is the silver suit. A fight between the two of them brawls out, which leaves Tony basically hungover, and Rhodey flying back to an American airbase.
Homeless because they fucking destroy his house.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, spoilers for 3. We see Rhodey now fly off with the Mark II. I thought the drunk scene and the party scene was kind of funny personally, but at the same time, I also understand that it's kind of, like we were saying before, in terms of the original story, they wanted to touch up on Tony's alcoholism. Now, this is just like a small drop in the pail compared to how much he really is an alcoholic in the comics, but it's just another coping mechanism because he doesn't know how to deal with exactly what's going on. So the floor is to everybody here. Your thoughts on the party scene in terms of, self-reflection, Rhodey finding out, saying fuck everything, the fight with Rhodey. I mean, everything in the whole mix. What do you guys think?
I think that was probably one of the most realist and most relatable scenes in the entire movie.
Yep.
Because at least one person here has dealt with alcoholism to that extreme of a level and tried to help.
Mm-hmm.
So, aside from him pulling the comedy stunt of, getting so drunk and partying in this suit and then peeing in this suit, I mean, his actions, the way he did that scene, is exactly how he actually behaved himself back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
With his problems. So.
Mm-hmm.
I like the any scene that had Justin Hammer and Ivan in it together. I liked their chemistry together. They worked well together. So that's a bonus for this movie. And I do like that every step of the way. Yeah, Hammer's such like a fucking petty bitch. He's trying to upstage constantly and always gets like the cold shoulder. As for the party scene and stuff like that, I think I didn't like it as much because it literally followed. It just followed another scene that was not directly but pretty close. That was just it just kept piling on the unbelievability. I mean, I get the fight part, more so the fight aspect, not the
right.
I'm gonna get drunk, fuck it, I'm gonna go crazy. The fight was like come on, man.
How's it's still standing on that cliff with all of that going on?
Like 1 trillion holes through everything. What happened prior to the fight, that makes sense, and I thought that was done pretty well. His descent into drunkenness. But the fucking Rhodey walked into his house and stole his fucking shit and left.
Yep.
That's exactly what happened.
I love how Nick Fury describes the next scene. He's like, brother fucking come in and just steal and just took your shit. There's supposed to be redundancies, Mr. Stark. I think this was probably so the one thing that I appreciated about the scene more than anything else was, and it kind of bled into the next part, which we'll talk about in a second, was the vulnerability, thank you, of Tony. Yes, you kind of saw it in the racetrack scene, but let's be real here. The racetrack scene, it didn't showcase that, I think, as well. Yeah, oh yeah, he was caught off guard. Yeah, so was everybody else when fucking Tony decided to jump in the goddamn the driver's seat. But to me, this showcased, like, yes, he's the the cocky, arrogant son of a bitch who falls flat on his face, but he can dust himself off pretty damn quick. He's not dusting himself off, at least right now. And this kind of goes back to the whole idea of the movie. I wish flushed out more of one thing or the other, because if you flushed out one thing or the other better, you could have had some really good shit. And Frank does said in the chat, Tony's drinking and destructive behavior was touching on the demon in the bottle storyline from the comics. Very true. We mentioned that earlier on, that was the original intention.
I wish they leaned into it a bit more.
But right, so it's kind of like it's, and we mentioned this earlier on, Frank. I'm not sure if you caught it, but like there's a lot of good things in this movie, but unfortunately, it falls into the Spider-Man 3 trope where it's too much in one thing. And if they just leaned on one versus the other, I would have enjoyed it more personally. But
the things I enjoyed, they needed to give more time to breathe.
Yes.
Yeah, that's basically.
Kind of felt like they took an entire season of just one comic series and crammed it all into one whole movie.
It's like
this is technically 2 movies in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's called 2.
Shut up. Iron Man, 2 movies in one.
Shampoo, 2 in 1. That is bullshit because 2 is not big enough to fit into 1. JP, any thoughts on the whole, like, the fight, the parties? No.
He agreed with me.
I pretty much Heather covered it. I mean, so the only thing that I will add
All dead.
is the alcoholism thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was an actual thing. That he had a drinking problem.
Oh, I'm like, for a second, I thought you're like, alcoholism is a thing.
Can be an alcoholic.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, what?
His drinking problem was the thing.
Yeah.
They never really elaborated on it, but now they do here.
They didn't even elaborate on it. They touched on it. It's like
right. So so just like in any comics, right? There are obviously main stories and versions of different things. But go ahead, sorry.
You've seen him drink the one time where he is at the party. Like I mean, a full. But that's not.
In the first movie, he's drinking quite a bit.
Yeah. It's the idea is that, like, in any comics, DC, Marvel, any of them, there are different versions of different stories. Like, obviously, we talked about Civil War. Civil War, there is a mini series in Marvel that takes place in blah 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 different universes, and there's millions of different stories. DC's no different. You can look at, like, the Killing Joke. Was it the Killing Joke? Death in the Family. It's the same characters, just different stories told by different people. In Iron Man's case, a couple of the major stories, or the drinking and the demon in the bottle one, is that he is a wicked hardcore alcoholic to the point where, like, shit gets crazy in terms of just fucking self-destructive. But any case, but no, I think kind of what we were, the theme of this movie in terms of, like, our thoughts about it is the same way I feel like that is just like, you had enough good content or good backstory there that you could have leaned heavier on either, like, say, the Whiplash or the Justin Hammer stuff and the government, or the self-destructive behavior, and flushed it, and had more substance to it overall. But that's just me.
Now, I'm sure, like, the idea of, and I remember reading something about this movie of them wanting to have leaned a little bit, like, much more on his self-destructive nature with alcohol.
Yeah.
But due to not only Robert Downey Jr.'s struggles with it, but also the fact that they wanted to open up or wanted to be an audience that kids can watch and everything else. Like,
right,
they didn't want to make it too mature, and that kind of stuff can get a bit heavy with young audiences.
Especially
or not as digestible.
Which I get. So I understand that. So at this point, shit's obviously hitting the fan, and we've basically seen. What's ironic is that we're, at this point, you could say Tony's at rock bottom. And I say rock bottom because when you see movies like this where someone's at their, like, the lowest, and they make their way back up. But I don't know if you guys noticed this, but at that point, it's the halfway point of the fucking movie.
Yeah.
I got the timestamps in here in terms of the actual movie. So just around the 1 hour mark is where we're at right now. We're about the halfway point of this 2 hour movie. And it's like, wait, Tony's now just at the low point. Now he's, like, on his way back up. Like, that means there's a lot of shit in between. So We, of course, see him get met up with good old director Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, of course, as we mentioned, Natasha Rushman is now reintroduced as Natasha Romanoff, who is the Black Widow, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And they basically inform him that, hey, you got to fix your shit and you got to get your shit together. And there's a little bit of exposition in terms of this part, which I personally like, and I'll get to my favorite part in a moment. But basically, Nick Fury says, listen, your dad was trying to stumble onto something, and he said that you had the technology and the knowledge to be able to help basically take the arc reactor or the technology about the arc reactor to the next level, which he presumes, could help him figure out his problem, I believe. My favorite scene in this entire movie is the scene where he is looking through his dad's journal and he's watching the film in the background. Where his dad is basically doing the takes for I believe it's the first ever Stark Expo, and he's fucking Walt Disney, which I just think is hilarious. And he's, there's bloopers of him like drinking, and he's like, so on behalf of everyone at Stark Industries, I'm going to show you my ass. And I just little fucking, apple fart doesn't fall far from the tree. But as he's not paying attention to the film, it cuts to a moment that he's actually speaking candidly to Tony, saying, I'm limited by the technology of my time, but I know you're going to be able to change the world, and my greatest creation has and I will always be you. And maybe that's just me personally because of father relationship, but I felt like that was one of, if not the best scene in the entire movie. Me personally,
was the sequence was probably the best. Like, this is why I'm saying there is a good movie in here.
Yep.
But there's also a bad movie.
It's sprinkled.
They both show their faces.
Take about an hour of footage out of this, and you got a good movie.
But it was a great scene, and I wish that's why. I would have focused a bit more on the past in this movie for Ivan and Howard Stark and Anton, and given a bit more ambiguity to Howard, and then have this moment mean that much more when it happens,
right?
Because it shows that he does have a heart and that he does care for him. That would have been the way I would have gone with it, but again, can't have that.
No.
Because they had too much to cut. They speaking of ambiguity, they went way too ambitious with this movie.
I think a lot of the times too, it's like the people that are involved in it, like the financiers and things like that. We want to include this, we want to include that because we want to be able to sell this, we want to be able to sell that, toys of this, toys of that. Fill that shit with garbage.
Yep. Yeah. Toys. So, we had all that going on. Now, in the meantime, just to kind of, because this obviously mattered towards the end, so Justin Hammer is still working with Ivan to try and figure out and develop either his own Iron Man suits or army of them. And he basically switches from saying, oh, they're not going to be Iron Man suits. They're going to be piloted by guys. They're going to be drones. And we see him kind of going back and forth with Justin Hammer, kind of promising one thing, saying he's not going to be able to deliver, basically being a little shit. He's drone's better. Again, fucking great at his role. So he goes, Tony goes to apologize to Pepper Potts in the best way possible by offering strawberries when she's fucking allergic to strawberries. I thought that was fucking hilarious, where he's like trying to like he's like, I made a correlation that there was something between you and strawberries. But of course, the big part of it is that he is able to look at a model of the Stark Expo and through his own brain, basically rediscover / discover / develop a new element known as palladium, which he's able to use as a new energy source to replace his arc reactor.
This was
and thus
really fucking stupid. I could get it if you looked at it and you could think of it looked like a computer chip.
Yeah.
If you were to look at it from above, but with the sequence that follows, I was like, "What the fuck?" Take with this, put it together, put it this. I'm like, I
have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, the scene with him looking through his dad's notes and stuff, and then it's like, aha, and the message was here all along. Like, okay,
Why
fine.
relay it in such a fucking convoluted way?
I know. It's a mixed bag for me on this
When he's
one, and it
driving
just
down the
seemed.
highway with the fucking big planks in his car.
I thought it was
Whoa,
funny.
the wind takes one of those, you're fucked.
Dead. He would have been dead, or right off the cliff, just dead. I felt like this was the biggest thing. I felt like was just like, cool. All right, you're healed. Like literally, you see him put the thing in his chest, and like the stuff just disappear. Ah, it tastes like coconut. Ah, like
Yeah.
Metal.
It was like a blood virus, right? So your blood circulates in your body really fast. So it probably would, if that was the thing that cleansed his blood, it probably would happen fast. But it was so stupid.
it felt like, oh, here's this big thing that's been like a problem the entire time. It's like, all right, cool. We're good.
Yeah.
Like,
Here's the magic band-aid. You're all better now. It's like,
why am I included in having such a big plot point if it's just gonna be like, look at this what are they called? Diorama?
look at this photograph.
But the way that he's like, remove the buildings, remove the walkways, remove the plants, and then all of a sudden it becomes a fucking element.
Oh, look, it's a nucleus of an atom. Like, how the fuck did you see that in Disneyland? I don't know how you got that.
I was like, how did you go from one to the other? Because everything you said made no sense to me.
Sorry, JP, did you want to chime in on the realism of this? No? Okay.
Realism. Jeez.
He's just waving his hand at this point, like, fuck it. That was my big thing. I like the idea. I like the concept and the idea that, hey, the thing that's keeping him alive is actually killing him, which is, I think, something Jarvis says. I actually like that idea as a plot point because he now has to like think outside the box and go above and beyond his own intellect and figure out a problem to this solution. I actually like this part of that movie, but the landing was just, they didn't put the fucking landing wheels out for this, and just fucking like it felt like so rushed. Or I would have at the very least appreciated this if they teased it at the end of the first one. You know what I mean? If they gave me a little bit of like, oh, this could be a problem, and then we got this, I would have probably accepted it a little bit more, just personally. Although I did like the little cute scene where he had the Captain America shield, using it to balance out the thing, because that was just like a nod and a wink. Because
that was a nice Easter egg.
For those of you who don't know what we're referring to, he obviously uses like this like makeshift like saucer that looks like the Captain America shield to balance out the tubes that he's using to create the element. The reason that was put into the movie was because in the first Iron Man movie, you can see it in the background of one of the scenes, and people were losing their fucking mind over it, and so they're basically, it's a troll job. They're trolling the audience a little bit at this point with that one. So which I thought was comical.
It was funny. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was the execution of the scene. Like, I'm with you. I actually like that plot point about him having to, fend off like the thing that, like you said, the thing that's saving him is killing him, and having to work that out. It's just like that, and I'm okay with Howard Stark providing him with the answer to it. It's just the way that it came about. I still don't understand what the fuck, like, so, like, I don't know, like, the makings of the element were there in the fucking diorama or whatever the fuck he made.
The way that it was presented, at least the way I understood it, and forgive me, is that what he did was he saw the blueprint of the atom to create the element in the construct of the Stark Expo. So he saw the center globe as the nucleus, and he saw the protons and the neutrons, and he was able to basically construct an element, the atom of an element from the blueprint of the Stark Expo. So he kind of like saw it as like a skeletal structure, and then just took it from there. And
this is where I don't get it. Like, if he already had the blueprint of how to do it, why didn't he fucking make the arc reactor?
I mean,
he had
he said in the video he was limited by the
wasn't there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. But he had. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird way to convey it.
Fuck you in this movie. No. That's why it's 2 and 1. But yeah, no, I mean that I'm pretty much in the same boat. It's like, yeah, I like that. I like that premise, but it just the landing didn't stick. So in the meantime, We see Justin Hammer get a hold of the Mark II, reverse engineer into what will later become the War Machine armor, as he gets ready for the big Stark Expo to present his own demonstration, which of course is all the weaponized drones for all different branches of the military, and then of course Colonel Rhodes presented as War Machine. Now, in the meantime, of course, we know behind the wall here, Ivan was now working on his own and looking to somehow sabotage Justin Hammer and take control of those drones. Tony, in his freshly new minted suit, which again, suspension of disbelief here, he made a brand new fucking suit based off of a brand new fucking element that nobody in the entire fucking planet knows, in less than an hour. Cool. So anyway, he moves on and ultimately partners up with with War Machine, and Ivan takes control of the drones and tries to kill Tony Stark by taking control of the drones and the War Machine suit and going after Tony, ensuing in a big battle and shootout throughout the entire Stark Expo. And before we hopped on this call, one of the very first things I actually said to Heather and JP, and I know JP's been saying people should be dead and the so-and-so should be dead. And I'm not disagreeing with him, but if there's any part of this movie where people should be dead, it is this part of the movie. There is so much fucking destruction and chaos and just... There's a scene where Tony's flying by a building and there are bullets being shot into the part of the building and there are people there. There's not even any injuries reported, let alone any deaths.
Why are there 1,000 cars parked under a fucking parked under the fucking highway? Like, what?
So my issue with this scene is everybody should be dead, especially when they start shooting out the shards and the shards of glass are falling down and nobody's like, oh my God, I'm getting hit with shards of glass. Like, there should have been fucking eyeballs popping out of fucking heads. It's like, come on, man. So again,
I hated the entire end of this
Michael Bay gave his input in this fucking movie.
He did.
And it's like,
he did.
Unnecessarily warranted.
The entire third act of this movie is fucking fat shit. I absolutely hate it so much. It's one of, like, I would have accepted the movie a lot more if it just had, like, they had it, like they have sequelitis. We gotta go big.
Not wrong. You're not wrong.
This entire thing is just like, can we please add just a semblance of realism? Just a semblance. I'm not asking for there to literally be everybody dead on the fucking tarmac. No. But you know what? Show some broken legs. Show somebody with a bandage around their fucking head, for crying out loud. Something.
Show an ambulance. Just one ambulance is all I'm asking. But of course, through the magic of plot conveniences and wrapping everything up in a nice little bow, Justin Hammer is, of course, trying to take control of the situation. He is later subsequently arrested. But in the meantime, Black Widow and Happy try to go find Ivan because they find out exactly where he called Tony from earlier on, but only to find that he is gone. But they are able to at least free the War Machine suit from Ivan's control, as basically they take down the last of the remaining drones between this. I thought it was at least kind of somewhat cool, even if it was a short scene with them taking out the drones in like the biosphere dome thing or the Polyshore biodome. Whoa. Again, short, sweet, to the point, showed off some cool weapons. I was a happy guy with that part. At least that small, like, what was it, 5-minute window? I was cool with that, especially the laser part where he just wipes everybody out in fucking one spin.
You should have led with that. It's a one-off. I'm like, well, who fucking cares?
By the way, and I can't remember who said this, but they did say that it is canon. But the little kid that was about to get shot by one of the drones, and Iron Man comes in and saves the day. They do reveal, it was kind of a nod and wink because people were over theorizing about it, and they kind of like, yeah, fuck it, it's canon. They did say that little kid in the Iron Man mask is Peter Parker.
Oh.
Okay. Anyway,
I know yeah, right. It's like, oh yeah, you fucking can't see his face. So yeah.
Allow the original Spider-Man movies as part of the MCU.
Okay, so it's Peter Parker.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't this take place in California?
New York.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
Yep.
I can buy it. Then I can buy it.
It's in Flushing, Queens.
Yep. Flushing turds.
So many questions.
Fire some away. We got the
Well,
time.
no, that's a rhetorical question.
Oh, well, that was one. Is that one of them?
That was
Yep.
one. This movie to me is just so, again, poorly written. The sequence at the end, the third act, as Basement calls it so eloquently, is
Michael Bay would have done a better
it's a
job.
little bit. Everything by this point has been all the we got to add this, we got to add this, we got to add this, we got to add this has been done. This actually flowed. I hated this part of the movie, but it flowed better.
Well, it's just pure action, really.
Yeah, like everybody should be dead.
JP's first shirt. Everybody should be dead. So then, real quick, since we're on the same part of it anyway, Ivan comes in with his own modified, upgraded Whiplash suit, full armor. Can someone fucking tell me why he kept taking his helmet on and off? I don't understand why he kept taking his helmet on and off during the fight. Anyway, War Machine.
The fight scene was going to last 2 seconds, and he wanted to show his face as much as possible.
Twice? War Machine.
I think it was because Mickey Rourke himself was having issues with the helmet, so he had to keep taking it off to adjust it. And they said, "Fuck it, we're just not going to take it out of the movie."
Oh, I thought it was all CG. I thought it was all CGI.
I think it's all
Anywho,
CGI. Yeah, it's continuity problems.
what's up, Randy Viper in the chat? So, of course, Iron Man and War Machine do the double palm mega bust and blow up Ivan in his own suit. Ivan then, of course, remote detonates all the drones, nearly killing Pepper Potts as Iron Man just flies in and swoops to save her just in the nick of time while the rest of the drones blow.
Stares at it for 10 minutes first. It's
Hey,
obviously a bomb.
I love how my favorite part was like the cops are like, "Are you gonna come too?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna wait for everybody to be safe." And like, "All right," and
I'm
just
gonna
walks
stand
away.
here right next to this robot that's dead.
That's fine. Of course, then Tony and Pepper have the embracing moment. They finally kiss. Rhodey holds on to the suit. I might as well just power through the rest of this part of the description and get through the rest of this movie. He goes sees Nick Fury about being part of the Avenger Initiative. Iron Man is apparently recruited, but Tony is not because they want to bring him on as a consultant because of his dangerous behavior. So he's still kind of under the watchful eye of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then, of course, he gets a rewarding medal, him and Rhodes, by the same senator who decided to trash talk him as we wrap up Iron Man 2.
Best line of that whole thing right there is the senator going, "Oh, it's amazing how annoying a little prick can be."
That was a good line.
It was a great
that
line.
Ending line right there should have just like credits, give me the end scene.
Yep, I'm not disagreeing with you on that one. So my overall thoughts are pretty much, I think, on the same vein of what we talked about before, is that this movie, and I'll go around the table here, Roundtable. There are things I want to like about this, and there are things that I could have liked more in this if there wasn't such a polarizing pull between two major conflicts. I'm even okay with the idea of Justin Hammer and Whiplash working together. I'm actually okay with that. If that was it, if that was the focus. Because as we mentioned before, one of the production ideas was to have Justin Hammer be kind of like the secret, like behind the veil, kind of like I'm secretly sending out these evil, armored up people like Whiplash or whoever, but nobody really in real life knows that it's me, not like the Emperor, but because that'd be cool. But I would be fine with that. I would have been okay with them if they explored him like self-destructing more and being more of an internal struggle with maybe some sort of random side character where the villain wasn't necessarily the focal point, but was more of like Tony's development as a person. I would have preferred either one of those than what we got with this fucking gumbo of just so much to digest. So, I mean, there are bits and pieces of the movie that I liked, but overall, whew, this was a far departure from the first one.
It really was. It really, really was. It's like I said. It's a full season of one comic book series, where the hero's going from one villain to the next within that season, crammed into one fucking movie when they didn't have to do that. They saw the success they got with Iron Man 1. They could have made this, and like I said, they could have introduced Justin Hammer at the beginning in the Senate hearing.
Yep.
Had his character explored just a slight bit more than what he was in that courtroom, and then left it at that.
It's almost like the Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same problems, at least for me anyway. JP, your thoughts on your favorite movie of all time?
This is not my favorite movie at all. Still better than Dream Warriors, though.
Wow. Step up.
I'm giving it out of 10. I'm going with a 4 out of 5, 4.5, 5 out of 10. It drug on.
Yep.
It was an hour and 50 minutes too long because everybody should have died.
2.
I don't know, man. This is why I don't like Marvel Comics. They try to do too much in a short amount of time, and it becomes overwhelming. Now, again, the human body cannot take the punishment that these guys do. Tony Stark does not have fucking superpowers. His superpower is his brain and his suit. His suit is made of armor, but even fucking armor, you're gonna fucking be sore as beat all fucking hell if you fall or crash from fucking 500 feet. You understand what I mean? You're gonna be in some fucking pain. You're gonna have a broken bone or two. Stop trying to justify it's a superhero movie when Tony Stark is not a superhero. He is a fucking brainiac in a fucking metal suit. That's it. He's not a superhero. He doesn't have the powers like fucking Captain America or the Incredible Hulk, which he should be dead.
They all should be dead.
Thor is the only one that I can buy. And here's why. Because he's not from Earth.
All right then. Heather, what would your ranking be for out of 10?
4.5.
He's asking me now.
Oh, do I buy Black Widow? There are people that can actually do that shit. So yeah, I can buy She Can Do That.
So then Thor is not the only one you can.
Well, you know what I mean. Thor's the only one with superpowers that I can fucking buy.
Right, because he's not from. Yeah, okay.
But for me, this movie, because of the fact that the storyline gets so muddled and confused, because you have 2 villains for the price of 1 in this movie, and they make Justin Hammer look like not just a petty little bitch, but just the biggest ass kisser
Go ahead.
out of anybody in this movie.
Go ahead.
It's just,
I mean, I kind of like that part personally, but yeah, I get what you're coming at.
he's a slimy little grease ball who
He's very punchable. Yeah.
no balls of his own to do anything until it comes time to talk about weapons, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that whole scene in the bar between Tony and Justin. It felt like older brother, younger brother fighting for mom and dad's attention.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, that's personally, just on a side note, I personally like that about the character. I just wish that it didn't seem very one-off-ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would have minded if it was a long-term deal, but anyway, I'm sorry. Your rating, what would you say? Same as JP's?
I'm actually going to go a little lower at 3.5.
Whoa!
And Hammer's a dumbass. He's just a straight up dumbass.
I'm giving Justin Hammer a little bit of leeway here because I remember the days when he was head thug number 1 in Ninja Turtles. So
Now, fun little fact, and again, we're recording this in February of 2022, so the show has not come out yet, but there is rumblings and rumors that we could see Justin Hammer return in the MCU in the upcoming Marvel Disney Plus series Armor Wars. There is a chance we could see him make his return, because we've already seen, as we'll talk about later on, there are some of these more obscure Marvel characters in the MCU that have made their return. So who knows? We might see Justin Hammer make his return. But Basement, floor is yours, sir. Your thoughts on Iron Man 2 and its wonderfulness.
So a couple things. With JP's point about the Iron Man being just a regular human. Yeah, he does have super intelligence. And to Harsh Truth in the chat saying, Batman doesn't have superpowers either. Now, this is what I'd like to see. I wish we saw a bit more in the Marvel universe. What the Dark Knight did with Batman. How many times did they show him beat up, like bruised, injured? His knee was fucking shot. His back was broken. Right? I mean, yeah, that was kind of bullshit with the back broken thing where he healed it by doing push-ups or some shit. But at least show that they can be hurt, because when you don't show that then the specialness of like a Thor or any of the other ones that legitimately are superpowered individuals, the divide between them they become too close together. I'd rather have like the Iron Man or like any other human character have that weakness and therefore make it mean something when they try to take on someone like Thanos and get fucked up. I mean, or any of the other supervillains, right?
Real quick before you go on, Basement, just I want to make a note here. Frank did say in the chat in regards to like the Batman Iron Man conversation, he goes, I liked it, I never understood the hate, especially after the mess that is Iron Man 3. The thing is that we're trying to, to the best of our abilities, and we're trying to isolate the movies as themselves. So I think part of the reason, and I want to speak on behalf of anybody here, I believe part of the reason that Iron Man 2 is looked upon more fondly is because of what happens in Iron Man 3, but we'll get to that in any case. Basement, sorry, continue.
And I mean, the way that I've been trying to look at these movies, at least, is we watched Iron Man 1, so I can take that into context when looking at Iron Man 2.
Yep.
Iron Man 1, why did it succeed? Well, various reasons, but one of the main ones, there was a focus. If you asked me what the focus of this movie was, I couldn't tell you. Iron Man 2, they have 3 different fucking focuses going on at once, and none of them are fleshed out properly. The movie would have to have eliminated one of those 3, and stuck with 2, and I think it would be pretty good. Like him getting poisoned, and maybe Justin Hammer taking a back seat, but also like slightly working with Ivan. I don't know. There's ways that this movie could be fixed, but they obviously didn't follow the same prototype in the writing room from Iron Man 1, and they did try to shove a bit too much in it. Is it an absolutely terrible film? No. But there's so many Marvel movies that are better than it, and they do refine their process and how they look at things. But the one thing Marvel movies never seem to get right, they've done it. How many Marvel movies are there?
I believe there are 27. Hold on.
I want to say 26 or 27. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Out of the 26 or 27 movies that they've done, only one of them did
27.
Did a good job on creating a villain.
Yeah.
There are very good villains in Phase 3, which we'll get to, but that's way down the line.
I don't think any of them they tend to. Opinion. I don't know, man. Like most of the villains are one note, except for one that I can think of at this point.
Which is
Thanos. He's the only good villain, and then they shit all over him after.
I was gonna say the concept of Thanos is excellent, but the execution of Thanos not so much.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree. I think there are villains. And I want to go too off on this, but I think there are villains later. Early Marvel, no questions asked. There are some shit villains that is their weakest point. But I think towards like right near before Infinity War, I think there are some very, very good villains. But and I think Thanos is oh god, Thanos is gonna be a fucking conversation when we get to Infinity War. But anyway, sorry, continue.
But yeah, overall the movie, I didn't like it when it first came out, and a lot of it had to do with the third act of the movie. It legitimately is a shit show. They completely throw Ivan to the side. He dies in 2 seconds. So the big battle is between these fucking weird machines that look like what were the Clone War fucking robots on steroids.
Oh my god, they are, yeah. Jesus Christ, you're right.
That's Roger. Yeah, that's exactly what they look like, and except on steroids. And it was so hollow. And I mean, this happens later in other films. They always need these fodder that aren't people, because we have to kill robots or aliens or things that aren't humanoid, because that would be frowned upon by the overlords. But as far as rating goes, I'm not going to go down 3.5 range. What did I give Iron Man, the first one, like a 7 or something?
I think so, yeah.
I think.
I'll have to go back.
I mean, this one, I'd give. I would never recommend it to anybody. I'm gonna give it. I can't give it a 5 because that means it would pass Rotten
Tomatoes. You would watch it again.
I gotta go like 4.8.
You're not far off on me. I mean that's the thing. Like I mentioned before I gave it to, gave everybody the floor again, was there are pieces of this that I like. There are ideas and concepts that I think if you flush them out more would make a fantastic movie, let alone a fantastic Iron Man movie. Like I said, I wouldn't have minded if Justin Hammer was like, oh, I'm gonna till we meet again, Iron Man, tune in next week kind of deal.
All the performances are good.
Yeah, the acting is actually pretty decent. Again, I think despite him having lack of depth or even a lot of screen time, to be honest with you, Mickey Rourke, I think is one of, if not my favorite in this movie. But I'm pretty much in agreement with everybody. It's so cluttered and all over the place, and the pacing is off that it's hard to want to like, hey, want to watch Iron Man 2? I'm good. I'm good. I need to see that twice. So I think I'm gonna give it.
Kind of boring.
I'm gonna. But to kind of reflect off of what Basement said, there are far worse Marvel movies. This is definitely not the best by any stretch of the imagination, but there are definitely going to be worse. I would probably give this one a 4. I think that, again, there are elements that they could have done better, and there are cool things. Love the scene where he's watching his dad on the film. I thought that was great there. A little, the comedy, I thought the comedy parts were pretty good. Love fucking Coulson. Anytime Coulson's in there, you got me. If I have no problem tasing you and watching Super Nanny as you foam into the carpet. Fuck, yeah. I love that line. So I mean, overall, I thought it was definitely one and done. Not going to be watching that one again anytime soon. I did throw it over in the chat too. Thoughts on Iron Man 2, up or down? We got 13 votes this time around. Thumbs up. It got a 61% thumbs up and a thumbs down of 38%. And again, just kind of a fun little poll that you guys can join along with us here on youtube.com/Horny Goat every other week as we do episodes of the Marvel Roundtable. And of course, you can also listen to us on your favorite podcasting sites too. So that being said, Heather, JP, Basement, any final thoughts? Oh, before we do the final thoughts thing, there's, of course, the end credit scene. We got to talk about the end credit scene, right? The end credit scene, of course, is Phil Coulson, who said he had to leave on assignment earlier on in the Iron Man movie when he was making The Element, and he appears to be in the desert, and he sees a mysterious giant crater with trucks surrounding it, and the camera pans back, and of course, it's none other than this weird hammer-like thing, as we hear thunder crackling in the background, teasing, of course, the next installment in the MCU. Hey.
This one is the one that actually pulled me into wanting to watch the rest of the MCU.
It's like...
Yeah.
Go on. Any last-minute thoughts on Iron Man 2 and or the end credit scene teasing the next big movie?
I was
Glad
excited.
that it's done.
I was excited when I found out the next big movie was going to be Thor. I got even more excited when I found out what characters they were going to be using for Thor. So we'll save that for in 2 weeks. But
Mhm.
this movie, again, I said it earlier, half of it felt like the writers and the director just decided to drop some acid and finish out the movie.
They could
It
have.
was
It's just
Just
never want to see this
gave
again.
up at a certain point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fuck it.
Things started to make less and less sense. It was like, fuck it. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the Thor will be interesting because I, like Heather, felt like after I liked Iron Man, I wasn't fully invested in MCU or anything like that. Then watching Iron Man 2, I was like, oh god. And
A little fearful. Yeah.
Thor is kind of like a refresher, or
It's
not
refreshing.
it's refreshing. Yeah.
Palate cleanser is what you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Finally, we're not getting another Spider-Man, and we're not getting another
Mhm.
Iron Man. We're going for the gusto here.
Spoilers. You're gonna be sadly disappointed. Any thoughts, JP? Other than everyone should be dead.
It's bad.
Cool.
It was bad. This movie was so bad.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Um,
It was hard to get through. There's a third time. You know what? I fucking forgot Black Widow was in this movie.
Yeah.
That like
Well-
I like at some point in time, my mind decided to like do not remember this.
Well, I'm probably gonna bring this up when we get to it, but I will ask the question at the end of the review once we get to Iron Man 3. Which one was better, Iron Man 2 or 3? And I'll be curious to hear your thought. Everybody hears
Yeah.
thoughts, and of course, everybody. Yeah,
I
it's
already
gonna
know
be.
it too.
It's gonna. Well, we'll see when we get there. You blocked a lot out.
Three, I don't even know if I finished that movie for how much I hated it while
Well,
watching it.
you're going to have to finish it now. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the Marvel Roundtable once again as we covered Iron Man 2. Want to thank the power couple, Heather and JP. Want to thank the bear from upstairs Canadian basement. And of course, I am Conor, your host. And join us, of course, right here on youtube.com/thehornygoat if you want to join us live in the conversations. Of course, Twitter at thehornygoat1. And of course, on your favorite podcasting platforms, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. When we guys join you again for another episode of the Marvel Roundtable, we'll be going into Asgardian lore as we look to the stars in the heavens as we cover the man who holds the power of Mjolnir, as we're going to dive into the mighty Thor.
See you later.
Iron Man 2.